it's a time capsule. It's a memorial to a lost time. And I think that what we're looking at in that whole area is the outcome of contact with an earlier, largely lost civilization.
Imagine discovering a colossal underground structure so mysterious that no civilization has ever claimed it. Hidden beneath a remote mountain in Russia's North Caucasus, a narrow vertical shaft plunges deep into solid rock. But this isn't a natural cave. Every wall is flawlessly smooth, every corner forms perfect angles, and the entire passage is built from gigantic stone blocks fitted together with astonishing precision. The scale is so unbelievable that many experts struggle to explain who could have built it, or why. No ancient records mention this place. No known culture has taken credit for its construction. Yet someone invested an unimaginable amount of effort to create a massive underground complex that seems impossible for its supposed age. The deeper explorers descended with nothing but ropes and cameras. The stranger the mystery became. What they captured below looked nothing like any cave ever documented on Earth, raising questions that continue to puzzle researchers around the world. Before we uncover the incredible secrets hidden beneath this mountain, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We're on our journey to 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps us bring you more unbelievable mysteries every week. Now let's descend into one of the most baffling prehistoric discoveries ever found, the mysterious underground megastructure that has no official name. The discovery did not begin with a famous archaeologist or a university expedition. Instead, it started with a cave explorer named Arthur Jamikov, a Russian speleologist whose career was built around exploring places few people had ever seen. Unlike many researchers, Jamikov believed that old legends deserved careful investigation rather than immediate dismissal. For years, he studied traditional Balkar stories describing hidden tunnels and enormous underground chambers beneath the Caucasus Mountains, comparing those accounts with military records and historical documents dating back to the Second World War. Piece by piece, those clues pointed him toward an isolated location known as the Kahora Shaft. After a long search, Jamukov finally decided to investigate the site himself. In 2011, equipped with climbing gear and accompanied by his team, he descended into the narrow vertical passage. The entrance was little more than a crack in the mountainside, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. As they lowered themselves deeper into the earth, polished stone walls surrounded them while the temperature steadily dropped. Every meter demanded complete focus because there was almost no room for error inside the confined shaft. The journey downward lasted more than an hour before the passage changed dramatically. Without warning, the cramped tunnel opened into an enormous underground chamber. The explorers paused in disbelief. Towering above them was a ceiling nearly 36 meters high, comparable to a 12-story building hidden entirely within the mountain. Even more remarkable were the walls. Instead of rough, natural rock, they appeared to be constructed from gigantic rectangular stone blocks fitted together with extraordinary precision. The joints between many of the stones were so narrow they were difficult to distinguish under the team's headlamps. Several massive blocks even resembled supporting pillars, giving the impression that the chamber had been intentionally engineered rather than naturally formed. From this vast hall, countless narrow passages extended into darkness. Some openings were so small that only a child might fit through, while others were barely wide enough for an outstretched arm. When the explorers directed their lights into these passages, The beams disappeared into the distance without revealing an end. Then they noticed something even more puzzling. A cool stream of air rose steadily from somewhere beneath the chamber. It was not drifting down from the entrance above, but flowing upward from deeper underground. That simple observation suggested an astonishing possibility. The chamber they had reached was not the end of the system. Whatever lay beneath continued far beyond the limits of their ropes, equipment, and visibility. The immense stone blocks quickly became the greatest mystery of all. Estimates suggested that some weighed close to 200 tons. To appreciate that scale, consider the granite beams above the king's chamber inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, which weigh roughly 80 tons each and are celebrated as masterpieces of ancient engineering. The blocks inside the Kahora structure appear to be more than twice as heavy, yet they sit deep beneath a remote mountain where there are no nearby quarries, transport routes, or obvious signs explaining how such enormous stones could have been positioned. Even with today's technology, relocating a single block of that size would require specialized heavy lifting equipment and carefully prepared ground conditions. Those conditions simply do not exist on the rugged summit where the shaft is located. It is easy to assume that ancient builders somehow accomplished the task, but that answer leaves the most important question unresolved. How? A useful comparison comes from Baalbek in Lebanon, home to some of the largest stone blocks ever incorporated into monumental architecture. Beneath the Temple of Jupiter rest the famous Trilithon stones, each measuring over 19 meters in length and weighing approximately 900 tons. Nearby, archaeologists also uncovered unfinished monoliths known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman and the Forgotten Stone, the latter estimated to weigh around 1,650 tons. These discoveries demonstrate that ancient civilizations were capable of quarrying truly enormous blocks, yet no universally accepted explanation exists for how such immense stones were intended to be transported or precisely positioned. Viewed together, these sites reveal an enduring mystery. The challenge is not simply the weight of the stones, but the apparent disappearance of the techniques required to move them. Whether those methods relied on engineering principles that have been forgotten, specialized knowledge that was never recorded, or solutions still unknown today, the evidence suggests that an important chapter of ancient construction has been lost. That realization leads to an even deeper question. If creating such a structure demanded an extraordinary investment of time, labor, and planning, why build it deep inside a mountain where almost no one could ever enter? The purpose of the Kahora complex may ultimately prove more mysterious than its construction: the missing human footprint. If this underground complex was truly built by people, then it should display the same clues found at every other ancient site. Human construction always leaves evidence of its purpose. Tombs contain burials, temples preserve altars, smoke stains, and religious carvings. Mines reveal excavation marks, broken stone, and discarded material from centuries of labor. Archaeologists rely on these traces to understand how a place was used, yet the Kahora shaft offers none of them. No stairways descend into its depths. No ladders, carved steps, or footholds were cut into the rock. Without modern climbing equipment, entering the shaft would be virtually impossible. That creates a puzzling contradiction. If ancient builders constructed this enormous structure, how were they ever meant to return once it was finished? A building that cannot be reached is unlike anything we normally associate with human architecture. The mystery grows even deeper when examining the walls. They contain no soot whatsoever. That detail may sound minor, but underground exploration has always depended on fire. Torches, oil lamps, and open flames inevitably leave black deposits on stone surfaces, and those marks can survive for thousands of years. Their complete absence suggests something extraordinary. Either no one ever illuminated these passages with fire, or the chamber existed long before people explored it using such technology. Other expected evidence is missing as well. There are no inscriptions, carved symbols, pottery fragments, tools, bones, offerings, or any sign that people ever occupied the space. The immense chamber, the precisely fitted stone blocks, and the maze of narrow passages exist without the usual fingerprints of human activity. It is as though the entire complex was created for a purpose unrelated to ordinary human use. Researcher Vadim Chernobrov, who led the Cosmopoisk investigation of the accessible sections, noticed an intriguing similarity between the Kahora shaft and several mysterious passages associated with the Egyptian pyramids. Those ancient shafts also lack soot, artwork, inscriptions, artifacts, and evidence of regular human access. Some are so narrow that moving through them would have been impossible without equipment unavailable in antiquity. To Chernobrov, these similarities hinted that both sites may have served a function unrelated to transportation, storage, religious ceremonies, or daily life. Then there is the airflow. Even at the deepest point reached by the expedition, a continuous stream of cool air rose steadily from below. This was not air drifting down from the entrance overhead. It was emerging from somewhere much deeper inside the mountain. In geological terms, moving air usually indicates that additional open spaces exist beyond the explored area, connected through hidden passages. If that interpretation is correct, the enormous chamber discovered by the team may represent only the beginning of a much larger underground network that remains completely unknown. Trying to explain mysterious engineering is already difficult when the builders are uncertain. Explaining a structure whose purpose cannot even be identified is far more challenging. That is why many researchers first turn to geology instead of archaeology. Could nature have created it? The natural explanation deserves serious consideration because volcanic landscapes are capable of producing surprisingly regular formations. Kahora Peak is composed largely of volcanic tuff, a rock created when ash, volcanic debris, and hot gases become compressed and solidify over time. This material often fractures into large slabs with remarkably smooth surfaces. In some locations, cooling lava naturally forms tall columns so symmetrical that early observers believed giants had carved them by hand. Ireland's famous Giant's Causeway is perhaps the best-known example of nature creating patterns that resemble deliberate construction. For that reason, the original explorers did not arrive expecting to discover an ancient engineered complex. They entered the mountain assuming that unusual geological processes might explain everything they encountered. However, the deeper they investigated, the more difficult that explanation became. Natural volcanic columns usually produce polygonal shapes, most commonly hexagons or pentagons, formed by the physics of cooling rock. Inside the Kahora shaft, the dominant shapes are strikingly different. Sharp right angles, straight edges, and massive rectangular blocks dominate the walls, features that resemble carefully worked masonry far more than natural fractures. There is another difference that is even harder to dismiss. Natural cracks rarely remain perfectly straight for long distances. They bend, widen, narrow, and follow the changing composition of the surrounding rock. The walls inside the shaft, by contrast, remain remarkably flat and parallel for nearly 40 meters, showing a level of consistency that many observers find difficult to attribute to ordinary geological processes alone. And that is where the mystery truly begins. Why geology doesn't fully explain it. The evidence became even harder to dismiss when researchers looked closely at the stone itself. In natural volcanic formations, fracture lines spread in multiple directions. Diagonal cracks and irregular fissures are an unavoidable result of how the rock cools and settles over time. They are found in virtually every known tuff formation. Inside the Cahora shaft, however, those expected patterns were largely absent. Instead, investigators reported long, uninterrupted surfaces bordered by remarkably straight edges. Even more intriguing was the material packed between many of the massive stone blocks. Rather than empty gaps or naturally weathered joints, several seams appeared to contain a bonding substance resembling mortar used in masonry construction. No known volcanic process creates evenly filled joints between giant stone blocks. Nature can produce impressive shapes, but it has never been observed assembling walls with binding material placed between individual sections. When these observations were considered together, the sharp right angles, the exceptionally straight walls, the apparent bonding material, and the absence of the fracture patterns normally associated with volcanic rock, the researchers reached an unsettling conclusion. They could find no known cave system that displayed the same combination of characteristics. At that point, the discussion shifted. The question was no longer whether the formation looked unusual. It became a far more difficult mystery. If this structure was intentionally created, who possessed the knowledge to build it? And when was that knowledge lost? A landscape filled with ancient builders. It is tempting to treat the Cahora shaft as a complete anomaly, an isolated curiosity with no connection to the history of the surrounding region. Yet the Caucasus Mountains have been shaped by human hands for thousands of years, and the archaeological record tells a far richer story than many people realize. Around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, the Maykop culture flourished across the northern Caucasus. These communities were highly skilled metalworkers, producing objects from gold, silver, and arsenic bronze while constructing elaborate burial mounds for their elite. At sites such as Zarskaya, they also built carefully designed stone burial chambers that would later become associated with the region's remarkable dolmen tradition. Even today, thousands of stone dolmens remain scattered across the western Caucasus. Built from enormous dressed slabs, joined at clean angles, many include perfectly circular openings carved through single blocks of stone. Their precision demonstrates that the people living in these mountains thousands of years ago possessed remarkable stoneworking abilities. Farther south, across the mountains in Georgia, another extraordinary example appears. The ancient settlement of Uplistike was carved directly into solid rock, creating an underground network of halls, chambers, tunnels, and living spaces that remained occupied for centuries. Within the same broader region, medieval stone necropolises, often called the City of the Dead, stand as another reminder that generations of mountain cultures repeatedly turned to stone as their preferred building material. The deeper researchers look into the past, the more surprising ancient engineering becomes. In southeastern Anatolia, sites such as Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe continue to reshape our understanding of early civilization. More than 11,000 years ago, long before cities, writing, or the wheel, prehistoric communities erected enormous carved stone monuments whose sophistication was once thought impossible for people of that era. Excavations continue to uncover new discoveries, reminding archaeologists that human capabilities in prehistory were often far greater than previously believed. Underground construction is equally well represented across the ancient world. In central Turkey, The vast underground city of Derinkuyu extends dozens of meters beneath the surface through multiple levels connected by ventilation shafts and passageways. China's Longyu caves display enormous hand-carved chambers with astonishing geometric precision, despite the complete absence of historical records identifying their builders. On the island of Malta, the Hal Saflieni hypogam descends through several underground levels carved into bedrock, forming one of the world's most remarkable prehistoric monuments. None of these discoveries proves that the Kahora shaft belongs to a forgotten global civilization. What they do demonstrate is something equally significant. Throughout history, cultures separated by vast distances repeatedly invested extraordinary effort into creating complex underground spaces. The Kahora structure no longer appears completely isolated. Instead, it may represent the most mysterious and least understood example within a much larger tradition of subterranean construction. A mystery that began before the discovery. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the story is that Arthur Jamakov may not have been the first person searching for this place. His expedition did not stumble across the shaft by pure chance. The route that eventually led him there began decades earlier, during one of the most turbulent periods in modern history. In the summer of 1942, Nazi Germany launched Operation Edelweiss, an ambitious military campaign aimed at seizing the oil-rich Caucasus and ultimately reaching the valuable oil fields around Baku. Officially, the operation focused on strategic resources that could strengthen the German war effort. Yet historians have long noted that alongside the military advance were individuals whose interests extended far beyond conventional warfare. Some members of specialized German organizations entered the Caucasus with objectives that had little to do with oil, territory, or battlefield strategy. What exactly they were searching for in these remote mountains remains one of the most intriguing questions surrounding the Kahora mystery. In the end, the Kahora shaft leaves us with more questions than answers. Deep inside a remote mountain lies a structure unlike any known cave, built with massive stone blocks, flawless geometry, and a purpose no one has been able to explain. No inscriptions, no tools, no human remains, and no clear evidence of who built it or why. The theories range from forgotten engineering to ancient underground civilizations, but none have been proven because the scientific studies needed to settle the mystery have never been completed. Until that day comes, the Kahora shaft remains one of the world's most overlooked archaeological enigmas. Whether it is an extraordinary natural formation or the work of an unknown civilization, one fact remains unchanged. The mystery is still waiting beneath the mountain, hidden in darkness, for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out the next video for another incredible ancient mystery.